The case which you're about to see is fictitious, but the procedure is authentic. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the public. Today's case in the Fulchester Crown Court is that of Mrs. Leonora Davis. She's charged with planning the kidnapping of Janice Warrington for the purpose of blackmailing Janice's father into paying a £50,000 ransom in return for his daughter's safety. Leonora Davis has pleaded not guilty.
Take the book in your right hand, read aloud the words on the cover.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is your full name Robert Arthur Criddell, and are you at present being detained at Her Majesty's Prison, Strangeways?
Yeah, but I bleeding shouldn't be.
Criddle, confine yourself to answering Mr. Draper's questions without the addition of scatological comment.
Sorry, Your Lordship, but it's not right that I should have to take all the blame when she's as guilty as I am. What's more, she damn well knows it.
If you don't behave yourself, Criddle, you may well end up with a further prison sentence.
Sorry, Your Lordship. Honest.
Mr. Criddell, what was your occupation at the time of the kidnapping?
Repairing tellies, weren't it?
Is that how you first came to meet the accused?
Yeah.
As a TV repairman?
I went to her house to mend a telly on December the 8th last year.
Are you quite certain of that date?
Oh, yeah. That's not a day I'll forget in a hurry.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it ain't every day you get half a bottle of port poured down you when you're actually fiddling with a lady's tube, is it?
Lady's tube?
Yeah, the tube in Leonora's, Mrs. Davis's telly. I had to replace it, see?
Oh, yes, I see. Why, Mr. Davis?
You are saying that the accused plied you with half a bottle of port while you were repairing her television set?
Wanted to make friends, didn't she? In a hurry.
Oh, she seemed to be making a play for you.
Yeah, but seeing as she's a sexy-looking bint, I didn't complain, did I?
Are you telling this court that Mrs. Davis appeared to be looking for sex?
No, she wasn't head-on sexy, just over-friendly like. Well, I could see she was lonely, underneath pretty angry about something, so I just humoured her and carried on fiddling with her tube.
Did you discover what she was angry about, did she say?
Yeah, she had just been made redundant by Warrington Gas Appliances, so it was hardly surprising she was all steamed up. Mind, I could understand how she felt, because I'd just been chucked out by them and all a couple of months earlier.
So you and Mrs. Davis discovered that you had things in common, then?
Right. And didn't she play on it?
Oh, how exactly did she play on it?
Well, as soon as she found out that we'd both been given the order of the boot, she suddenly suggested that it might be, well, a bit of a giggle if we got her own back on old Warrington. You know, by us making him suffer in the same way he'd made us both suffer. What's more, she said we could get him through his daughter, Janice.
Did the accused appear serious when she made this suggestion?
At the time, I couldn't be sure.
Oh, why couldn't you be sure?
Well, she did it in a very jokey way. Used to do a lot of smiling in them days, did our Leonora? Don't look so smiley now, though, does she?
Criddle, will you confine yourself, please, to answering Mr. Draper's questions?
Sorry, Your Lordship, she just makes my blood boil.
And you must try and control yourself.
Did something at some stage make you sure that she wasn't joking?
Yeah. The next time I met her, she made it damn clear she was serious as hell.
When did this second meeting take place?
About a week later, December the 15th.
And where did the meeting take place?
At the Way Way.
I beg your pardon?
The Wei Hei Wei is a Chinese restaurant, Your Honor, in Fulchester High Street.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
Whose idea was it to meet at the Wei Hei Wei?
Hers, of course. She rang me at work and said she wanted to take me out for lunch. Well, I couldn't say no, could I? Not with her looking like that. Especially not with a free chink nosh thrown in.
And did this invitation come as a surprise?
First off, yeah. But though I say it myself, I ain't a bad-looking bloke. I can fill a pair of jeans with the best of them, and fancy pieces notice these things. At least, Leonora did.
Yeah, so you joined the accused at the Wei Hei Wei?
Damn right I did. And it was during lunch that she brought up the question again of us revenging ourselves on old Warrington. In fact, that's all she could yak on about, even over the crispy duck. No wonder I got indigestion.
And how did she propose that you could both obtain your revenge?
By us kidnapping Warrington's kid, of course. And what's more, she went on to tell me why it would be worth my while.
And why did she say it would be worth your while?
Well, old Warrington's a pretty wealthy firm, isn't it? And old Warrington himself is rolling in it. I mean, his weekly payroll must be in the region of 50,000 quid. So she said if we kidnap Warrington's kid, we could hold her for ransom till her old man coughed up to 50 grand.
And how did you react to the accused's suggestion?
I laughed in her face, didn't I?
Oh, why did you do that?
Well, I mean, kidnapping's a pretty airy stunt, isn't it? The filth aren't too keen on it for a start. Nor are most judges.
Yes, so at first you laughed at the suggestion. Did you see her again after that meeting?
Yeah. in the Jolly Cricketer on the corner of Thornton Road about a fortnight after we'd had our lunch at the Way Way. To be exact, it was January the 3rd of this year.
And was this meeting at your suggestion?
No. In fact, I've forgotten all about it till she rang me at work on January the 2nd.
And invited you to meet her the following day at the Jolly Cricketer?
Yeah, and at first I told her to get stuffed. That is, until she made it clear that if I didn't agree to meet her the next day, she'd make things very unpleasant for me.
Did she indicate how she could make things unpleasant for you?
No, she didn't say. I just sensed that she got something on me. I couldn't put my finger on what, but it worried me enough to agree to meet her the next day in the Jolly Cricketer.
And when you eventually met her on the following day, did she indicate how she could make things unpleasant for you?
And how? She started off by telling me she'd been following me around Fulchester the old time since we last met.
When you eventually met her on the following day, did she explain why she'd been following you around?
Yeah. She'd seen me doing a little job, hadn't she?
Ah. What kind of little job would that be, Mr. Criddle?
Well, she'd see me nicking a few bits and pieces from TVR on Christmas Eve, right? TVR is where I used to work, see? Pay was dreadful. Anyway, Christmas Eve I decided to borrow a few valves on a permanent basis. Also threw in a couple of Jack Tellys, you know, as my Christmas bonus. Well, the boss was such an old skinflint, I had a good mind to rip off the lot. And as I knew the rest of the staff were getting themselves all tanked up on the first floor, I just slipped out with the gear through the fire escape, and I was just hiking the second telly into the back of my van when there was this sudden great flash of light on the other side of the street. But being a Burke, I ignored it, didn't I? I just jumped in the van and drove off with the gear. And it wasn't until a fortnight later in the Jolly Cricketer that I found out what that flash was.
And what was it?
With a flash bulb going off in Leonora's camera, weren't it?
Ah.
Yeah, she'd actually photographed me loading the stolen goods in the back of my van. And being a nice, helpful sort of lady, once she got me in the pub, she told me, over a pint of mild and bitter, that unless I personally kidnapped the Warrington kid, she was going to take the negative of my little caper straight to the filth.
Criddle, that is the second time that you've used the word filth. I take it you mean to refer to the police. Well, let me warn you now, I will not have them referred to by that name.
Oh, right.
Did you see a photograph of yourself committing the crime?
Yeah, she showed it to me, all right. She even promised to give me the negative once I'd kidnapped Janice.
How did you respond to the accused's blackmail threat?
How would you have responded to her had you been me?
Well, as I am not you, Mr. Criddle, I cannot say, but I feel sure that you will enlighten us as to your response.
Well, I had to go along with her, didn't I? I had to agree to do the job. I mean, what choice did I have? In 72, I was put away for 6 months, and then in 75, I got 2 stinking years. Mind you, when I came out, I tried to go straight, because I knew if the police picked me up again, they'd throw the book at me. So there was nothing I could do but agree to help her carry out a crazy plan.
And what was her crazy plan?
Well, to be fair, it weren't all that crazy. In fact, it turned out exactly as she said it would. But then our Leonora's not just a pretty face. I know, she was even clever enough to offer me the biggest share of the ransom. She said once I got my hands on the 50,000, I could keep 30 and she'd be satisfied with 20. But that's how cunning she is, isn't it? Because she knew darn well that she was just doing the planning while old Bugs Bunny here was taking all the risks.
Yes, you still have not told us the details of Mrs. Davis' kidnapping plan.
Well, the minute I agreed to do the job, she pulled this drawing out of her handbag and handed it to me.
A drawing? Of what?
With a plan of Warrington's house and grounds, weren't it?
But is this a plan still in existence, Criddle?
Afraid not, your lordship. I burned it straight after the kidnapping, didn't I?
I see.
On Madam's instructions, of course.
I see. So we only have your word for it. This plan never existed.
Listen, I could never have got inside Warrington's Ponzi joint without her help, let alone kidnap his rotten daughter.
Well, besides this plan that you say the accused gave you, what other concrete assistance did she supposedly provide?
For her kick-off, she gave me a copy of Warrington's front door key.
And am I right in assuming that this key no longer exists?
Yeah, I chucked it in the river day after I did the job. Again, on her instructions.
Naturally. Right.
Did the accused tell you how she'd been able to obtain Mr. Warrington's front door key?
She'd had a copy made of the original he'd lent her.
Why did Mr. Warrington lend her his front door key in the first place, did she say?
Yeah, she told me he used to like her to go over to his place after hours, you know, to take down his recorded letters in shorthand and that.
Ah.
In fact, she seemed to have free run of the house, even when he was swanning around in Benidorm or the Canaries. So I suppose it must have been convenient for them both to have a front door key. Well, it shows how much he trusted her, didn't it? And she repaid this trust by having a copy made of his front door key and by drawing a detailed plan of his house. So, when I was kitted up with a key and the plan, I was all ready to snatch the kid. That is, after I'd rented the tumble-down cottage outside Applethorpe.
Now, what was the address of this cottage?
Keeper's Cottage, Applethorpe.
And why did you rent it?
Well, we needed somewhere to stow the kid after I'd snatched her, didn't we? Of course, the cottage was Leonora's idea, but she was clever enough to get me to rent it. Mind you, it was perfect for the job. Stuck slap bang in the middle of that lousy wood. No one came near the place in the whole 3 weeks we had it before the kidnapping.
You had the cottage for 3 weeks before the kidnapping. Why was that?
It took us that long to be absolutely sure about the kid's movements. In fact, I used to follow Janice to school and back every day until finally Leonora decided that I should snatch the kid on Friday the 31st of January this year.
Did the accused give any reason for choosing this particular evening for the kidnapping?
Yeah. You see, I discovered that every Friday Janice used to stay on at school for an extra hour and a half for a dancing lesson and a spot of yoga. And Leonora had found out that her old man would be stuck in Birmingham that particular Friday night. And as Janice's mother was dead and we knew the housekeeper had been given the weekend off, well, it was just perfect. Janice would come home to an empty house. That's why Leonora arranged for me to be inside the house when the kid got home, so that as she came in, I could grab her, shove a chloroformed handkerchief under her nose, and Bob's your uncle. In fact, that's exactly what happened. Before she had a chance to put up any resistance, she was taking a long sniff of chloroform, and then wallop, she was stretched out on a bed.
Where was the accused while you were physically kidnapping Janice Warrington?
She was at home, weren't she? Preparing dinner for her husband.
When you had chloroformed Janice, what did you do then?
Got in the van and drove to the cottage.
The cottage was well hidden, was it?
Yeah, and there was no moon neither, so I carried her inside. By now, she was nearly conscious, but still pretty woozy, so before she could recognise me, I blindfolded her with a load of bandages, and then I locked her in one of the bedrooms. And then I sat around for 4 stinking hours until I was pretty sure old man would be back from his Birmingham trip. And then I went into Applethorpe just after 11 and phoned up old Warrington from a call box and told him our terms.
And what were your terms?
Well, I said something like, if you want to get your daughter back in one bit, put 50,000 quid in used notes in a plastic carrier bag and drop the carrier bag in the litter bin on the corner of Chorley Road off Applethorpe High Street at midnight tomorrow night. And once you've delivered the gelt, drive home fast and you'll find your kid returned to you safe within the hour.
Did you say anything else to Mr. Warrington over the phone?
Yeah, I told him not to bring the police in or do anything to double-cross me or he'd find his kid in a litter bin. Mind you, that was just a stupid threat. I mean, the very last thing I'll commit is murder, especially when there's a kid involved.
Yes. Now, how did Mr. Warrington respond to your threat?
He was terribly upset, wasn't he? But he said he'd do exactly as I told him and deliver the gelt the following midnight in the plastic bag and not call in the police or nothing. So I left it at that and hung up. Then I whipped back to the cottage.
And all this time, Janice was tied up inside the cottage?
Yeah, mind you, it upset me having to treat her like that. So when I got to the cottage, I made sure she was all right and gave her something to eat. Then I went to bed myself in one of the front bedrooms.
Did you call up the accused and tell her of your progress with the kidnapping?
No. You see, Leonora had maybe promised not to get in touch with her till I'd actually got my hands on the 50,000 quid and released the kid, of course. So I had to put up with a solid 24 hours nail biting, and then just after midnight the following night, I went into Applethorpe to collect the loot and, well, you know the rest, Squire.
Criddle, I'm sure Mr. Draper knows the rest, but the jury and I certainly do not. So perhaps you'd be good enough to describe what occurred when you left the cottage that evening.
Well, I sneaked into Applethorpe and hid in a doorway opposite the little bit on the corner of Chorley Road. Didn't have to wait long. About 3 minutes later, a maroon Jag pulls up. And as far as I can see, the street's empty except for the Jag.
When the maroon Jaguar pulled up beside the litter bin, what happened then?
Oh, Warrington got out, didn't he? He was clutching a plastic bag, which he put in the litter bin just like I told him. Then he jumped in the car and drove off. So I gave it a good 5 minutes to make sure I was safe. Then I nipped across the road, and I was just pulling the money bag out of the bin when, surprise, surprise, I felt the friendly hand of the law on my shoulder. So I turned round fastish, I need to find myself looking into the smiling beadies of 4 uniformed police officers.
What is so amusing about being arrested?
I'm sorry, Your Lordship, I just can't get over Warrington's nerve. I never thought he'd have the guts to set me up like that. And it's all her fault. She not only blackmailed me into kidnapping the kid, oh no. Once I was caught, she didn't even have the nerve to come forward and share the blame. She's as guilty as I am. In fact, guiltier.
Criddle, this is the 3rd time that I've had to warn you to answer questions that are put to you. Right, Mr. Drayton.
No more questions, Your Honour.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Criddle.
Criddle, I put it to you that you are an outrageous liar, and that you know perfectly well that Mrs. Davis had nothing whatever to do with either the planning or the execution of the kidnapping of Janice Warrington.
Oh, come on, lady, I've given you enough proof to hang that rotten bird 10 times over.
On the contrary, Criddle, so far we have only your word against that of Mrs. Davis. For as yet you have not provided us with a single scrap of physical evidence to back up your vicious accusations.
What about the key and the ground plan she gave me? I could never have done the job without them.
Indeed. But as you admitted earlier, you yourself worked for Warrington, did you not?
Yeah, but I never actually went inside his house when I was working for him, did I?
Never.
Yeah, well, it's true he did once ask me to mend his telly, but that's the only time I visited his house. And even then I was only there about half an hour.
But on that occasion, did not Mr. Warrington lend you his front door key so that you could gain entry to the house in order to mend his television set? Because Mr. Warrington had to stay on at the office.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I think he did lend me his key.
You really think he lent you his key?
All right, he did lend me his blasted key, so what?
And once you were in possession of the key, did you not immediately have a replica made?
Of course not. What sort of person do you think I am?
A self-confessed thief, Criddle.
Oh, now look here.
Oh, come now, Mr. Criddle. Surely you must agree that for you to make a replica of Mr. Warrington's key would be a perfectly simple and natural thing for you to do, considering your criminal nature.
But I didn't make a replica of his key.
And when you gained entry to Mr. Warrington's house by using his key, you found that you were completely alone in the house, did you not?
Yes, I suppose I did.
So once you had repaired Mr. Warrington's television set, you had ample opportunity to make a detailed plan of Mr. Warrington's house, knowing that there was no one there to observe you.
Yes, but I didn't do it.
I suggest that you had the opportunity. And indeed you did tell my client that there was such a plan, although she never saw it. Moreover, I further suggest that the reason you made a replica of Mr. Warrington's key was because you had already decided that at some future date you would kidnap Janice Warrington and hold her to ransom.
That's a lie. It would never have entered my head to kidnap the kid if she hadn't blackmailed me into doing it.
If, as you say, Mrs. Davis blackmailed you into committing the crime, why did you not inform the police that she was your accomplice when they first arrested you?
At the time, I wanted to, well, like, protect her, didn't I?
You wanted to protect the very woman who was blackmailing you?
Yeah, I know it looks a bit odd, but...
But?
Well, the truth is, soon after I'd rented the cottage, I started to have a bit of an affair with Leonora. In fact, I fell in love with her.
And were you still in love with her 3 weeks later when you actually carried out the kidnapping?
And how?
So your affair with Mrs. Davis continued right up to the moment of your arrest?
No. You see, the day before the kidnapping, Leonora suddenly wouldn't let me go near her anymore. It drove me half crazy.
Are you saying that Mrs. Davis terminated your relationship only the day before you abducted Janice?
Yeah.
Did Mrs. Davis give you any reason for suddenly ending the affair?
She just said she had to stop it because her husband had found out about us. When she said we were finished, I was cut up something rotten. But because I still loved her, when I was arrested, I decided to take all the blame on myself. That's why I never said nothing about her part in the kidnapping.
And after you were arrested, did you have any further contact with Mrs. Davis?
No, she never tried to see me, no letter, nothing. When she was sitting in the gallery at my trial with all them other gawpers, her face was like stone. And when the judge passed sentence on me, I looked across to see her reaction. Absolutely zilch. I couldn't believe it.
Is that when you decided to accuse Mrs. Davis of being your supposed accomplice in the kidnapping?
No, I didn't get to thinking about that till after I was inside. And the more I thought about it, the more twisted up I got. Then, after I'd been in prison for a couple of weeks, I decided to tell the whole truth.
Are you therefore saying that your main motive for accusing Mrs. Davis of being your supposed partner in crime was in fact an embittered lover's desire for revenge?
Well, partly.
I put it to you, Mr. Criddle, that you know perfectly well that my client is entirely innocent in regard to this crime. But because she broke off her affair with you, you are now perjuring yourself simply in order to gain your revenge on her.
I'm not perjuring myself, I'm telling the truth.
Oh, come along, Mr. Criddle. By your own admission, you have an appalling criminal record. And all the crimes you have committed hitherto, you have in fact committed entirely by yourself. So why should the jury now suddenly be expected to believe that you are not solely responsible for this particular crime? Especially when, by your own admission, you cannot furnish any physical proof that Mrs. Davis was in any way involved in planning the kidnapping. Moreover, you have also admitted that Mrs. Davis was at home with her husband while you were actually carrying out the snatch. And even when you had successfully abducted Janice and were holding her prisoner in the cottage, you admit that you still did not try to contact your alleged partner in crime. So, apart from your 2 meetings with Mrs. Davis publicly, in the Jolly Cricketer and again in the Chinese restaurant, there is no evidence that you even knew Mrs. Davis well, let alone proof that she masterminded the kidnapping of Janice Warrington.
She's as guilty as me.
So when you came back from your dancing class on the evening in question, Janice, and let yourself into the house, did you sense that there was an intruder in your bedroom?
No, sir. I didn't sense a thing. I simply switched on the hall light and ran upstairs. I wanted to change out of my school uniform, so I went straight into my bedroom.
Then what happened?
Well, it was all so quick. I stepped into my room and someone grabbed me, and then this horrible smelling wad of something was shoved under my nose. And then, well, I must have passed out, I suppose.
So you never actually saw who was attacking you?
No. And when I eventually came round, I found I was blindfolded and locked in this room. Soon recognised her voice, though.
Whose voice did you recognise?
Hers. Who else? I mean, the cheek of it, to kidnap me, then to actually laugh about it with each other in the next room. Well, just shows what type of woman she is, doesn't it? She's even worse than he is.
The case of the Queen against Davis will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see is fictitious, though the procedure is authentic. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the public. Leonora Davis is accused of planning the kidnapping of Janice Warrington for the purpose of blackmailing Janice's father into paying a ransom of £50,000. Today, the second day of the trial at the Fulchester Crown Court, Janice Warrington is being questioned by the prosecution.
Are you saying, Miss Warrington, that while you were held prisoner in the cottage, you actually heard Criddle and the accused laughing and talking together in the next room?
Yes, sir.
Are you certain that it was the accused you heard talking with Criddle and not some other woman?
Oh, I'd know Mrs. Davis' voice anywhere. While she worked for my father, she was always playing up to him, giggling and that.
When did you first become aware that the accused was in the cottage with you?
I'm not sure. You see, I had no idea what time it was when I first came round from being chloroformed, and then I heard her giggling and then talking together.
Can you remember anything which either of them said?
I remember Criddle saying something about her being a sexy bitch on heat, but those were his words, you understand, not mine.
Yes, of course. Now, how did you know that the man who kidnapped you was Criddle? For it is right, is it not, that you never actually saw your captor's face for the whole time that you were held prisoner?
That's true, but when the police arrested Criddle, they forced him to bring them back to the cottage, and then I recognised his voice. And then, when they took my blindfold off, I saw him. Not something I'll ever forget.
That's all right, Janice. There's no need to upset yourself. Now, let us return to the night of the kidnapping. While the accused and Criddle were together in the cottage, did the accused say anything that struck you as in any way particularly significant?
Oh, yes. She kept on bragging about how much they were making my dad suffer.
Was there any mention of the ransom?
Yes, but she didn't seem very interested in the money, only in getting her own back on my dad, because he'd sacked her.
Did the accused address you directly while she was in the cottage?
No, she was too clever for that. Did all her bragging in whispers. Obviously thought I couldn't hear her. Though I don't think she cared much whether I heard her or not. I'm pretty certain if the police hadn't rescued me the moment she got hold of the ransom, she would have had Criddle kill me.
Did you actually hear the accused say that she wanted you killed, Janice?
No, but I knew that's what she was thinking, planning.
You know, Miss Warrington, your speculations as to Mrs. Davis's thoughts are quite inadmissible, and in due course I shall direct the jury to ignore them.
So the accused did not actually say anything while she was in the cottage which made you fear for your ultimate safety?
She did say one thing.
Which was?
Well, just before she left the cottage, she said to Criddle, by the time we've finished with her father, he'll be a broken old man, and not just because he's lost 50,000 quid either.
Now, were those her actual words?
As far as I can remember.
Thank you, Janice.
Janice, you said earlier that from the moment you were chloroformed in your bedroom to the moment you regained consciousness at the cottage, you have no recollection at all of what had happened to you.
That's right.
And when you did eventually regain consciousness, for some considerable time you had no clear idea where you were being held or by whom, and certainly no real conception of whether it was even day or night. Is that not correct?
Yes, I was blindfolded with some kind of thick bandage, you see. In fact, it was quite hard to breathe because one of the layers of the bandage slipped down over my nose.
And also presumably over your ears as well.
Sorry, miss, I don't quite understand.
Well, if there were several layers of bandages tied round your eyes that interfered with your breathing, then surely there must have been several layers of bandages tied round your ears as well, were there not?
Oh, yes. In fact, some of the bandages were tied quite tightly round my ears.
And if the bandages were tied very tightly round your ears, they must have severely impaired your hearing, surely.
Well, I suppose they did a bit.
Then there is a very good chance that you may well have misheard everything that occurred in that room, is there not?
No, Mrs. Davis was there, I tell you.
I suggest to you that what with the difficulty you experienced with your breathing, as well as with your hearing, plus being only semi-conscious at the time, totally disorientated and very, very frightened, I suggest to you that in these appalling circumstances, your fevered imagination took you over and completely distorted reality for you.
Didn't imagine it. Everything I've said is true.
I put it to you that in your heart you know very well that Mrs. Davis was not in that cottage at all, and that you in fact imagined all the supposed giggling, because in reality there was no one but yourself and Criddle in that house.
That's not true. I heard them.
But how can you be certain that it was Mrs. Davis you heard, when by your own admission your hearing was severely impaired by several layers of bandages, and they were tied very tightly round your ears?
Was her, I tell you.
Did you like Mrs. Davis?
Of course I didn't. She was a scheming cow, and still is.
In what way was Mrs. Davis a scheming cow?
Like I told Mr. Draper. She was always trying to get round my dad. I knew why as well.
Why was that?
She wanted to get my dad to marry her, didn't she?
Did you actually ever hear Mrs. Davis saying that she wanted to marry your father?
No. I didn't need to hear her say it. Knew what she was up to, the way she'd been carrying on. Ever since my mum died from cancer. Sorry.
Take your time.
Would you care for a glass of water, Miss Warrington? Thank you.
All right now. Just that my mum had hardly been dead before that woman tried to get her claws into my dad.
So, you do not just dislike Mrs. Davis. You actively hate her, don't you?
What if I do? It's no more than she asked for. What she's done to our family. If I had my way, I'd put her in prison and chuck away the key. What are you looking at me like that for? She's the guilty one, not me.
Why don't you be honest for once, Janice, and admit that your hatred for Mrs. Davis has made you tell some rather substantial lies here today?
I never lie.
I put it to you that you do. For you know very well that Mrs. Davis was never in that cottage on the night of the kidnapping, do you not?
She wasn't there. How could I possibly have heard the two of them talking?
Again, I put it to you that you did not hear them talking at all. As I said earlier, you either imagined the whole thing because you were only semi-conscious and totally disorientated, or more probably, you've made up the entire story because you were jealous of Mrs. Davis.
I've never been jealous of that cow.
I put it to you that you were, and you probably still are. For you believe, do you not, that Mrs. Davis is capable of stealing your father's affections and usurping the place of your mother?
No. No, no, no!
Thank you, Janice. I have no more questions.
Take the book in your right hand, read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Is your full name Alfred James Warrington?
That is correct.
And do you reside at the Chestnuts, Lorraine Avenue, Fulchester?
I do.
Did you find it strange, Mr. Warrington, that your daughter was not at home when you arrived back from Birmingham on the night of the kidnapping?
Well, yes, very. Especially as Janice hadn't left me a note or anything.
What time did you arrive home?
Oh, it must have been, about 10:30.
When you discovered that your daughter was not there, what did you do?
Well, I rang up a couple of her school friends. I thought perhaps she might be staying overnight with one of them. She occasionally does on a Friday evening. In fact, I was just about to ring Mary Townsend, that's another of Janice's friends, when Criddle telephoned and told me that he'd kidnapped Janice.
Are you saying that you recognised Criddle's voice over the telephone?
No, but I took his demand for £50,000 in return for my daughter's safety very seriously indeed.
Can you remember Criddle's exact words in that phone call?
Yes. He said, "Get this, Warrington. If you don't put your firm's payroll, all £50,000 of it, into a plastic bag, and then dump the plastic bag into the waste bin on the corner of Chorley Road, just off Applethorpe High Street, tomorrow at precisely midnight, then you'll find your daughter dead in another waste bin within 24 hours.
TV lawyers.
Now, Mr. Warrington, are you certain that Criddle threatened to kill your daughter if you did not comply with his instructions?
Well, he might not have used those exact words, but it was obviously implied. Otherwise, how could he put my daughter into a waste bin?
How did you respond to Criddle's demand for a ransom in return for your daughter's safety?
Well, naturally, I agreed to what he asked. I was far too frightened to put up any resistance. And the moment I agreed, then Criddle hung up.
After Criddle had hung up, what did you do then?
Well, for a long time, I did nothing at all. It was almost as if I was paralyzed. All I could think about was what was happening to Janice. I kept trying to visualize where he was holding her prisoner, or whether she'd been harmed, or... So I just sat there by the phone for nearly an hour.
But then eventually you took some action, did you not?
Oh, yes, in the end, I rang the police, even though I was terrified. You see, Criddle had made it abundantly clear in his phone call that if I contacted the police or did anything to try and thwart him, then Janice would suffer.
Yet despite your understandable fear, you nevertheless called the police.
Yes, and thank God I did. Otherwise, Janice would never have been saved, or that monster caught. And I must say it was quite miraculous the way the police responded to my call for help.
In what way was the police's response miraculous?
Well, when I followed their instructions the following evening and drove into Applethorpe with the £50,000, I could see no sign of the police presence whatsoever. But within 5 minutes of my placing the plastic bag into the waste bin, the police appeared from nowhere and caught Criddle red-handed with my money on him. That's what I mean by miraculous. Oh, I know it's not very fashionable these days to praise the police, but in this case they were remarkable, quite remarkable.
I'm sure they were. Now, you had employed the accused.
Yes.
But dismissed her in December last year.
Yes.
Was she upset by that?
Oh, yes, very. In fact, she was so furious, I thought she was going to attack me.
Can you remember what she said on her final day in your employ?
Yes. She said, "Come hell or high water, I'll get my own back on you, Alfred. I won't rest until I've completely destroyed you."
And were those the accused's exact words?
Absolutely.
So Mrs. Davis' reaction to being made redundant was very like Criddle's when you had sacked him 2 months earlier.
Oh, no. Leonora's reaction was much worse than Criddle's. But then she had a very real reason for wanting revenge, hadn't she?
And what was that reason?
Well, the day that I made her redundant, I told her that, well,
Yes?
I told her that we could no longer continue with our affair.
Are you saying that you and the accused were lovers prior to your making her redundant?
Yes.
How long had you been having an affair with the accused?
Oh, for about 3 months.
But why did the ending of your affair make her want to revenge herself on you?
Because for most of our affair, she was blackmailing me.
How was the accused blackmailing you?
After I'd slept with her several times, she threatened to tell my daughter about our affair if I did not agree to give her a considerable weekly allowance.
And did you comply with her blackmailing demand?
Yes, I did. See, at that time, I suppose I was so besotted by her that, well, I must have been frightened of losing her. So I agreed to give her £100 a week in cash to keep her quiet. But in the end, I couldn't take the strain of it any longer, so I broke off our affair and I sacked her.
Did the accused retaliate by telling your daughter of your affair?
No, but as I've already said, she made it very clear on that last day that she wanted to make me suffer. Well, not just by humiliating me in front of my daughter, no, she swore to destroy me. And what's more, she would have destroyed me if the police hadn't rescued Janice the way they did.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warrington. No more questions, Your Honor.
As I understand it, Mr. Warrington, you are alleging that you sacked my client because she was blackmailing you over the affair you were having with her.
That is correct.
And do you still maintain that that is why she wanted to revenge herself on you?
Yes, but the blackmail wasn't the only reason that I sacked her.
What was the other reason?
Well, for the last 2 years that she worked for me, Leonora was a constant source of trouble and disruption to me and to my workforce.
In what way was Mrs. Davis a source of trouble and disruption?
Well, for a start, she was becoming increasingly lazy and inefficient as my personal assistant. And latterly, she was far more interested in flirting with the members of my staff than in doing any work. Well, that is with the men, of course. She also had an extremely vicious tongue. Worst of all,
Yes?
Well, she tried to make me distrust my own daughter.
In what way did Mrs. Davis supposedly try to make you distrust your daughter?
She used to imply that Janice was some sort of promiscuous slut.
Can you remember a specific occasion on which Mrs. Davis is supposed to have made such an accusation?
Well, no, I'm afraid I can't.
I put it to you that the reason you cannot remember a specific occasion is because my client never in fact made such an accusation.
She most certainly did. And what's more, she tried to make out that Alice, my wife, was having an affair with one of my partners practically up to the day she died. Well, that was more than I could take.
Presumably you can remember when my client supposedly made that particular remark.
Yes, she said that the day before I sacked her. Oh, she really must have hated me to behave the way she did. I mean, first of all, to blackmail me and then to... Oh, it was horrible. It isn't as if I wasn't a generous employer. I always gave her time off work whenever she asked for it. And her workload was far from excessive. Yet in spite of that, she seemed bent upon destroying me. And she very nearly succeeded when she masterminded this plan to kidnap Janice. But I can see that you don't believe a word I'm saying, do you?
Do you, Mr. Warrington?
Yes, I do. It happens to be the truth.
And exactly how many months did you say that Mrs. Davis was a source of trouble and disruption?
Well, I suppose it must have been, well, for 5 or 6 months.
Then why scarcely a moment ago did you say that Mrs. Davis was a source of trouble and disruption for 2 whole years?
I'm afraid I must have been exaggerating a little.
Then perhaps you were also exaggerating a little about the sordid innuendos that Mrs. Davis is supposed to have made concerning your daughter's promiscuity and your wife's affair with one of your partners.
Nothing of the sort. I distinctly remember her saying those things.
And were there any witnesses, apart from yourself, of course, who actually overheard Mrs. Davis saying those things?
No, I'm afraid not.
You seem to be afraid of a lot of things, Mr. Warrington. And as you seem unable to produce anyone to back up your accusations against Mrs. Davis, your fear may well turn out to be very well-founded.
Look, madam, I'm not afraid of anything. So there's no point in your trying to intimidate me with your sly innuendos.
I'm not trying to intimidate you, Mr. Warrington. I am simply trying to uncover the truth. Now, Let us return to the question of your supposed affair with my client.
There was nothing supposed about it.
I suggest to you that there was no affair at all. Indeed, I suggest that all your accusations against my client are motivated by a mixture of jealous frustration and a desire for revenge.
Jealous frustration and revenge? Why should I want to revenge myself upon that predatory slut?
Perhaps because you wanted to have an affair with Mrs. Davis, but she turned you down. It would be because you were madly in love with her at the time and sexually frustrated. You totally lost control of yourself and vindictively sacked her.
No, that's a lie.
Oh, I'm sure the members of the jury can understand your vengeful obsession, Mr. Warrington. Even I can see that my client is a very attractive lady. But what the jury may find difficult to understand is why you were so intent on taking your revenge to such appalling lengths. To fabricate stories about blackmail because of sexual frustration is one thing, but to actually accuse Mrs. Davis of being a party to the kidnapping of your own daughter is quite another, especially when, by your own admission, you never heard her specifically say anything that could possibly implicate her in this terrible crime.
This just isn't true. I've already told you she threatened to destroy me.
And I suggest to you that Mrs. Davis was under considerable stress at the time. And if she did use the word destroy, which has not yet been proven, she was acting in a purely emotional way on the spur of the moment, which is hardly surprising if she believed that you were sacking her simply because she refused to go to bed with you.
Again, that is simply not true. It is not true. You only have to look into her eyes to see what kind of woman she really is.
Mrs. Davis, let us begin with the most important question. Were you or were you not involved in Criddle's plot to kidnap Janice Warrington?
I was not involved in any way at all. Had no reason to be.
Did you at any time make a replica of Mr. Warrington's front door key or a plan of his house?
Never.
And on the morning that Mr. Warrington made you redundant, do you deny that you threatened to revenge yourself on him, threatened, in fact, to destroy him?
Certainly I deny it. The last thing I wanted was revenge or destruction. In fact, I could feel only too relieved when he sacked me.
Why were you relieved?
Because I was heartily sick of the old lecher chasing me around the room, trying to get me to go to bed with him.
Did you acquiesce to Mr. Warrington's demands and have an affair with him?
Good heavens, no. I spent most of my time telling him to go to hell. Not only did I find his attentions repulsive, but I could see that his behaviour was offensive to his daughter, Janice.
So you were somewhat concerned about the effect that Mr. Warrington's behaviour was having on his daughter?
I certainly was. The way he ignored her every time she came to see him in the office and then made passes at the office girls in front of her. Well, it upset me a great deal. You see, I always went out of my way to try to be a second mother to Janice, or at least a compassionate aunt. That is, ever since her own mother died of cancer.
And how did Janice react to your attempts at mothering her?
Not very well, I'm afraid. She completely misunderstood my motives. It seems that she thought I was trying to manipulate her father into marrying me. I'm sorry. I just don't know how she can think such a thing.
Go on, Mrs. Davis.
I just don't know how she can say these things about me.
Mrs. Davis, you really must compose yourself.
Sorry, Your Honour, but I'm just too upset to think straight. I simply can't believe all the appalling things that everyone has made up about me. It's all lies.
Well, try to answer the questions, Mrs. Davis, and put your side of the story to the jury.
Can't you ask your questions later when I've had time to pull myself together? I can't answer them now. I just can't. I beg you to excuse me from all this just for a little while, please.
Miss Seymour?
Perhaps she might be excused for the time being, Your Honour.
Oh, very well, then you may return to the dock, Mrs. Davis.
Thank you.
The case of the Queen against Davis will be concluded tomorrow in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see and the characters in it are fictitious, but the procedure is authentic. Leonora Davis is accused of planning the kidnapping of Janice Warrington for the purpose of blackmailing Janice's father into paying a ransom of £50,000. Leonora has pleaded not guilty. Today, the last day of the trial at Fulchester Crown Court, Tom Davis, Leonora's husband, is being questioned by the defence.
And you are quite certain, Mr. Davis, that your wife did not mention to you the possibility of revenging herself on Mr. Warrington, that is, after he had made her redundant?
On the contrary, Leonora was only too relieved that Warrington had made her redundant.
Why was she relieved?
Well, because latterly, all he'd done was make passes at her, and as he's such a pig, well, naturally, Leonora found this distasteful.
So your wife told you all about Mr. Warrington's distasteful advances?
Oh, certainly.
Was she therefore relieved when Mr. Warrington eventually made her redundant?
Oh, you could say that again, yes.
But surely she must have been somewhat upset to be made penniless in such a peremptory manner.
Not really.
Why was that?
Well, Warrington didn't pay her very well. Even though she was his personal assistant, he only paid her about £4,500 a year. Besides which, he did give her a 6-month salary as his pathetic version of a golden handshake. Not that we needed it, you understand, Miss Seymour. I have a very well-paid job in advertising with Winter and Black.
So you see no possible financial reason why your wife would want to instigate the kidnapping of Janice for the purpose of blackmail?
Oh, forgive me saying so, Miss Seymour, but that is a ridiculous question. My wife is so scrupulously honest. She wouldn't even take a sheet of notepaper from a hotel bedroom, let alone get herself involved in a vicious kidnapping and blackmail.
To your knowledge, has your wife ever kept any secrets from you?
No, even though when she was having that brief affair with Criddle, she told me about it, about 3 weeks after it started. You see, we've always made a point of, well, trying never to hide anything from each other.
And while she was having the affair with Criddle, did she say anything about the alleged plan to kidnap Janice Warrington?
No, she didn't. She didn't know anything about it. If she had, she would certainly have told me.
One last question, Mr. Davis. Do you still maintain that on the actual night of the kidnapping, you and your wife were at home between 7 o'clock in the evening and 8 o'clock the following morning?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis, you say that your wife never kept any secrets from you.
She didn't, and still doesn't.
Then why did she not tell you about her affair with Criddle at its inception instead of over 3 weeks later?
Well, I suppose she...
Yes?
She was probably enjoying herself too much to tell me about it, wasn't she?
Perhaps making love with Criddle was not the only thing she enjoyed doing with him.
What exactly is that supposed to mean?
Perhaps she also enjoyed blackmailing him into kidnapping Janice Warrington.
Look, if my wife had been involved in the kidnapping, she'd have told me about it.
You mean like she told you about her affair with Criddle 3 whole weeks after it began?
Look, even if what you're implying is true, which it blatantly isn't, my wife had no motive for a kidnapping.
Are you saying that you and your wife were financially solvent at the time of the kidnapping?
Yes, I was earning about £10,500 a year, on top of which Warrington gave her £2,500 as a golden handshake. So obviously we had no money problems.
I put it to you, Mr. Davis, that at the time of the kidnapping, you both had considerable monetary problems.
Yeah, well, that's utter nonsense.
Is it or is it not true that during the last 3 months of last year and the first 3 months of this year, you had several important creditors pursuing you?
Well, yeah, I suppose there was 1 or 2, yes.
Only 1 or 2, Mr. Davis.
OK, so I owed a couple of thousand here and there, but... Well, Leonora has expensive taste. So have I, for that matter, but it doesn't make us criminals, for God's sake.
But is it not true that your wife's golden handshake, in its entirety, had to be used to pay off some of those creditors?
Yes, but that didn't mean we had to find more money from somewhere else, does it?
Under normal circumstances, no. But at the time your wife was made redundant, your own financial position was very precarious indeed. Because just a month before the kidnapping, you also thought that you were going to be made redundant, did you not?
My firm was having certain liquidity problems, that's true. They still are, as a matter of fact, but we're in a recession. Everyone has to pull their belt in a notch or two.
So you admit that at the time of the kidnapping there was a distinct possibility that you could have been made redundant too?
Yes, but I wasn't made redundant, was I?
But at the time you were not sure whether you were going to be able to keep your job, were you? And I put it to you that the £20,000 as your wife's share of the Janice Warrington ransom would have come in rather handy, wouldn't it?
Look, if I was going to be made redundant, we'd have found some other way out of it, believe me. Well, we would.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I have no more questions, Your Honour.
And do you now feel that you can answer my questions, Mrs. Davis?
Yes. And I'd like to say how sorry I am that I broke down like that.
Now, please answer the questions put to you, Mrs. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honour. Mrs. Davis, you say that Janice Warrington claimed that you were trying to make her father marry you.
Yes.
And were you?
Oh, God forbid. I could hardly bear to be in the same room with him. Every time he tried to touch me, my skin crawled. He had such sweaty hands, you know.
Yet, despite what you felt about the father, you still tried to mother the daughter, did you not?
Well, yes, I was very fond of her. You see, I was never able to have a child of my own, so I just wanted to comfort Janice, I suppose. Just to be there whenever she wanted someone to talk to. The more I tried to be kind and loving towards her, the more jealous she became of me. In fact, towards the end, I came to feel that she actually hated me. Which is why I presume she's now trying to get me convicted of a crime which I not only didn't commit, but which she must know in her heart is deeply repugnant to me.
Then did you suggest to Criddle, only 2 days after you were made redundant, that, and I quote, "Wouldn't it be a bit of a giggle if we made old Warrington suffer like he's made us suffer, and what's more, through his daughter?"
No, I didn't say any of that. It was Criddle who said all of that when he came to mend my television set.
But why should a television repairman say that to you, a complete stranger?
Well, I suppose because I told him that I'd recently been given the push from Warrington's, in much the same way, as it later turned out, that Criddle himself had. And I assume that that's why he invited me to lunch at the Chinese restaurant the following week, because it was there that he first proposed that we should kidnap Janice together. At that time, I just couldn't believe my ears.
Are you saying that Criddle invited you to lunch, and not vice versa?
Well, of course. I was out of work at the time, if you remember. I didn't want to waste my money on taking a TV repairman out to lunch. But he was a very attractive young man, so I didn't mind him taking me out.
And while you were having lunch at the Way Hey Way with Criddle, it was Criddle and not you who first proposed that you should both kidnap Janice.
Well, of course, I was still very fond of Janice, if you remember. The last thing I'd ever consider would be to kidnap her.
Then how did you react to Criddle's kidnapping proposition?
Well, I laughed in his face, of course. I mean, the whole idea was so absurd. I just couldn't take him seriously.
Why couldn't you take him seriously?
Well, he was fairly drunk on his second bottle of wine at the time. In fact, he could hardly get the plan out at all. His speech was so slurred.
So you never thought of going to the police and telling them about Criddle's kidnapping proposition?
Well, no, I didn't want to make an utter fool of myself, did I?
Yet, despite Criddle telling you about this absurd idea of his, you nevertheless arranged to meet with him 2 weeks later at the Jolly Cricketer, did you not?
Yes.
Why was that?
Because I hoped that someone who knew me would see me in the pub with Criddle.
What purpose would that serve?
Because they would then report back the scandalous tidings to my husband, wouldn't they?
Why ever would you want them to do that?
Because at that time my husband was having an affair with our next-door neighbour, and I wanted to make him jealous.
Yes.
So you say that you deliberately met with Criddle at the Jolly Cricketer in the hope that one of your husband's friends would see you there together and would report back to your husband?
Yes, it was the only way I could think of to make Tom jealous. I hoped it would make him break off his affair with the girl.
Now, while you were in the pub, did you try to blackmail Criddle, as he stated earlier, into going through with the kidnapping plan?
Well, of course not. Even if I'd wanted to blackmail Criddle, which I certainly didn't, whatever would I have blackmailed him with?
Well, according to Criddle, just about last Christmas, you took a photograph of him stealing some television equipment. Then, again, according to Criddle, on January the 3rd in the Jolly Cricketer, you threatened to turn over the incriminating photograph to the police unless he would join in with your plan to kidnap Janice Warrington.
I'm sorry, but that's just another pack of lies. I never took a photograph of Criddle stealing a television set. In fact, I never even knew that he was a criminal at all until he was convicted of the kidnapping.
Did Criddle at any time tell you that he had a criminal record?
Certainly not.
But while you were in the pub together, did he do or say anything that seemed to you to be even potentially criminal?
Well, he did show me what he said was a plan of Warrington's house. And he also showed me a Yale key, which he said fitted Warrington's front door.
Did you believe that the plan and the key were what he said they were?
No.
Why did you not believe him?
Well, he was fairly drunk again, and I just thought he was boasting and talking his usual nonsense. Well, especially when he said he'd sketched the plan and made a copy of the key 6 months before that, when he was still employed by Warrington. Well, I mean, the whole thing was so far-fetched and ridiculous, I could only laugh in his face.
Did you examine the plan and the key when Criddle showed them to you?
No, I was far too busy trying to stop him making a drunken fool of himself to bother with his silly plan.
So at the time, you had no idea at all whether the plan and the key were genuine?
No idea at all.
When did you actually begin your affair with Criddle?
Well, it was a few days later when Criddle rented a cottage just outside Applethorpe village.
You see, according to Criddle, it was your idea to rent the cottage so that you would have somewhere secluded to keep Janice prisoner after he had kidnapped her. Is that true?
No, it was entirely Criddle's idea to rent the cottage.
Did he say for what purpose?
Well, yes, he said it would be the perfect place for us to meet. Naturally, that didn't please me very much.
Why did it not please you?
Well, as I said earlier, the main reason for my having an affair with Criddle in the first place was to get my own back on my husband. So when he insisted that we meet in an isolated cottage in the middle of a wood, I could see that there was no chance of anyone seeing us together. So, I mean, in that respect, the whole affair was a complete disaster.
And in the 3 weeks between your meeting at the Jolly Cricketer and the actual night of the kidnapping, did Criddle ever again mention his plan to kidnap Janice Warrington?
Not after our lunch in the pub, no.
And while you were at the cottage together, did he ever at any time try to inveigle you into helping him carry out his plan?
Well, absolutely not. Though once he'd rented the cottage, he did try to inveigle me into going to bed with him as often as possible. That is, when he was sober enough to know where the bed was. Most of the time, he just used to wander around the cottage in a drunken haze, whinging on about what a terrible hard life he'd had, and how everyone else was to blame but himself.
So when did you finally break off your affair with Criddle?
2 days before Criddle kidnapped Janice. Though, of course, at that time I had no idea that this was about to happen. It was just that his boasting and his drinking eventually depressed me so much that I just wanted out. Anyway, by this time I told Tom about our affair, because I was fed up with waiting for one of his friends to see us together. And I'm very glad I did tell him, because as soon as he knew that I'd been a naughty girl, he promised to finish his affair with Susan. Oh, I know in retrospect this all sounds very involved and extremely childish, but that's how it was. And I'm certain that Criddle's only telling these lies about me because he simply can't forgive me for breaking off our affair as abruptly as I did. That's why he's trying to frame me for a crime which he alone committed.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. I have no more questions.
Oh, come now, Mrs. Davis. Why do you not admit it? Your evidence has been a tissue of lies from beginning to end, has it not?
Look, it was Criddle who invited me to the Chinese restaurant and later to the Jolly Cricketer, and not vice versa. And it was Criddle who told me about his absurd plan to kidnap Janice and then to hold her for a £50,000 ransom, and not the other way round. And that's the truth.
Well, the jury may find much of your evidence hard to believe, Mrs. Davis.
Well, I'm simply telling you what happened.
Then perhaps you can explain to the jury how an apparently intelligent and compassionate woman such as yourself could ever have become involved with a man like Criddle.
I've already told you. In the beginning, I found Criddle very attractive, and I wanted to make my husband jealous. But that doesn't turn me into a criminal, surely.
But you had this affair with a man who, by your own admission, on 2 separate occasions suggested to you that you should revenge yourself on your former employer by kidnapping his daughter. And yet you were supposed to be devoted to his daughter. In fact, according to your earlier statement, and I quote, "I tried to be a second mother to her, or at least a compassionate aunt." Well, those are your very words, are they not?
Yes, and of course it sounds strange when you put it like that. But as I keep telling you over and over again, at no point did I ever take Criddle seriously when he chunted on about his absurd kidnapping plan. Why should I take him seriously? When on the only 2 occasions he ever mentioned it to me, he was very drunk and talking nonsense.
I put it to you, Mrs. Davis, that those 2 separate proposals to kidnap Janice were not made by Criddle at all. They were made by you, and by you alone.
Are you saying that you would believe the word of a man with a criminal record rather than someone like me, who's never even had a parking ticket?
My beliefs are immaterial, Mrs. Davis. I further put it to you that it was not Criddle who drew up the plan of Warrington's house, and it was not Criddle who made the copy of the Yale key to Mr. Warrington's front door, but it was you, and you alone.
You'll be telling me next that you believe his ridiculous fairy story about me blackmailing him.
Well, you did blackmail Criddle with the incriminating photograph, did you not?
What photograph? It never existed. I've never blackmailed anyone in my life, and I certainly had no reason to blackmail Criddle.
Oh, come now, Mrs. Davis. On the day you were made redundant, you swore to destroy Mr. Warrington. So you blackmailed Criddle into carrying out your ingenious plan of destruction by kidnapping his daughter.
Forgive me for saying so, Mr. Draper, but your accusations are absurd. Totally absurd. Even Warrington has admitted that there were no witnesses to my supposed threat to destroy him.
Well, even if you deny threatening to destroy Mr. Warrington, Mrs. Davis, you surely cannot deny that at the time of the kidnapping, you and your husband were over £2,000 in debt.
Yes, but you seem to have forgotten that Warrington paid me over £2,000 as a golden handshake. And I immediately used all of that money to pay off all our debts.
But if your husband had been made redundant, as you feared, you would both have been penniless, would you not?
But he wasn't made redundant, and we were never penniless.
I suggest to you that you felt sure that your husband was going to be made redundant, which is what finally drove you to blackmail Criddle into becoming your partner in crime.
Why won't you believe me when I tell you that the only time Criddle and I were ever partners was in bed?
Yes. Well, I've only one more question for you, Mrs. Davis. It concerns the actual night of the kidnapping. I suggest that you slipped out of your house just after midnight and made your way to the cottage at Applethorpe so that you could be with your lover and gloat over the kidnapped child.
I never left my house for one moment that night, as both my husband and I have already testified. And how dare you suggest that I would gloat over a kidnapped child? God, when I heard how Criddle had treated her, I broke down and cried. Which isn't surprising when you consider how fond of her I was.
I put it to you that all your tears and your so-called fondness for Janice were in fact a callous fiction, and that in reality you were only pretending to be fond of the child to curry favour with her father, whom you later proceeded to blackmail.
I tell you, I've never blackmailed anyone.
Then once you found out that you couldn't get any more money from him by blackmailing, you decided to kidnap his daughter and demand a £50,000 ransom. Well, that is the truth, is it not?
The truth hasn't come into anything you've said, Mr. Draper. On the contrary, it seems that you will go to any lengths to destroy my name in order to get a conviction.
On the contrary, Mrs. Davis, it is you who will go to any lengths in order to avoid the truth and to hide your obvious guilt.
Well, I'm sure that the jury will see that I've been consistently maligned during this trial. And I trust them to give me the justice I deserve and acknowledge my innocence.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. I have no more questions, Your Honour.
And so, members of the jury, I remind you, you have to consider whether Mrs. Davis is or is not guilty on 2 charges. And the first charge relates to the actual planning of the kidnapping of Janice Warrington, and because obviously there's no doubt that Janice was kidnapped and that Criddle physically carried out the abduction, what you now have to consider is whether the accused was a party to the kidnapping. Did she, as the prosecution suggests, make a plan to Mr. Warrington's house, plus a replica of his front door key? And then did she blackmail Criddle into actually carrying out the kidnapping? Or was Criddle the sole planner and perpetrator of the crime, as the accused alleges? And therefore, was the accused's involvement with Criddle only that of a lover? The second count relates to the demand with menaces for a ransom of £50,000 in exchange for Janice Warrington's safe return. Again, you have to decide whether the accused was a party to this because of the acute financial difficulties that both she and her husband found themselves in, or for any other reasons, or whether, in fact, Criddle acted alone in demanding the ransom money because of his own economic difficulties and because crime was an habitual way of life for him. Now, you have to decide where the truth lies. But I must warn you that the defense do not have to prove anything. And unless the prosecution can prove a charge beyond all reasonable doubt, you must acquit the accused of that charge. And now, will you retire and choose a foreman to speak for you on your return and consider your verdict?
Will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
On the first count of the kidnapping of Janice Warrington, do you find the accused guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
On the second count of demanding money with menaces, do you find the accused guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.